Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday evening, so that is another episode of Dungeons and Deliberations, where eventually we'll have hopefully some viewers to be able to answer questions about being a dungeon master and such like that. I'm going to apologize in advance if my voice gives out. We did just finish our monthly virtual D&D weekend with Baldwin Games and Wizards of the Coast. I ran 8 hours a day on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so my voice might be a little crackly, and I'll probably be drinking a little bit of my Sprite Zero here as we play or as we discuss stuff and talk about D&D related things. Actually, a couple of things came up over the weekend, which gave me an idea about a few things to talk about. First, someone actually sent me a message about using the moniker Master of Dungeons. I said it would be a little bit boastful if I had given myself that name. I was given that nickname from some friends a number of years back, and just recently, obviously starting the brand earlier last month, late February, started using it over the past few years just as an online presence. And I was like, I have this at Gen Con this year. It'll be my 40th anniversary, so it'll be come to the conclusion of my 40th year as a DM, and with just wanting to pass on the information, just wanted to put that out there in case anyone thought it was trying to be boastful or anything. But some of the things that came up during the event over the weekend. Now, it was a Saturday night game, and I'm not going to mention any players. I'm not going to mention any of the games, any of their Discord IDs, nothing like that, because as I say a lot of times, when you come into games, you never know what people are going through, especially when you're playing online, when if you're not using cameras and you can't see people's faces, things like that. You don't know what they've been going through. You don't know how their day's been. It was Saturday night, so some people, when they go to virtual D&D weekends, they'll play every single slot that they can, which is, I believe, we have 9 slots now. We have Friday at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m., and I think another one overnight, Friday/Saturday. And Saturday and Sunday, we have 9 a.m., 2 p.m., and 7 p.m. games. So the players might have been a little tired. And when the situation arose, I kind of got a little frustrated, but of course I remember that it was a really long weekend already. Some people, this might have been like their 5th session of playing that weekend. It was only my 4th for running. And I really noticed that the players there was only a couple of them that kind of didn't necessarily know the rules. I'd never really played with the players before. I was not sure if they were new or not. Maybe it's just they haven't played a lot of 5th edition. Maybe they're new to 5th edition, not new to Dungeons and Dragons. Wasn't really sure. But something really didn't click at the time when I was in the situation. And of course, the players, they weren't, I don't want to say that they were adversarial, but they did make some mistakes that players really shouldn't make when they're at a convention or a live play game, or even at a homebrew game with your home group. You probably still shouldn't question the DM about rules, question the dungeon master about certain things, and I think there might have been just a little bit of miscommunication there, but then I started thinking about it, and one of my players at the table did kind of jump in to do a rules explanation, which I was getting ready to do myself, and I really, really appreciate it when players do that. But I do always ask players, if you're at a table and there's a rules dispute, obviously you want to, as the DM, try to say, hey, well, we might not have the correct call at the moment, but let's go ahead and deal with it after the game. That way we're not, bogging down everyone's time, and let's just go ahead and try to get back to the fun of the game. And if you're a player at the table, do your best to let your DM resolve any sort of issues that might come up at a table, because that's part of the DM's job as well. Now, if you're an experienced player and you've got a fairly new DM, and the DM, looks around like they're like a deer in headlights looking for some help, obviously, definitely come to their aid to help them out if possible. But always make sure, especially if your DM's a fairly experienced DM, to let them handle that. They've especially when you're at a convention with an experienced DM, as the DMs have a lot of experience dealing with that. And if you get involved as a player, that's really not something that needs to happen. But what I did realize when I was looking back on the situation, everything resolved fine. We finished the game. Everyone had a great time. And hopefully those two situations were forgotten by the players when the two situations came up. However, looking back on what the players said, I didn't think about it at the time. As I mentioned, I always talk about every there's no perfect dungeon master. You're always learning as a DM. You should always try to find ways that you can learn and find ways that you can teach if people are looking to be taught. And sorry, again, my throat's getting dry there. Apologies. But what I noticed when both players were talking, the first one said that he was talking about the situation, and again, I don't want to describe the complete situation because I don't want any, if the players happen to watch this on the stream, happen to watch it on video on demand, happen to pick it up on YouTube, I don't want them to feel embarrassed in any way whatsoever. It's just a situation where I noticed that in both of the incidents, each one of the players said the word teammate, that they weren't able to do something for their teammate, or that their teammate was in trouble, and that there was that's when the rules things came up. And I noticed they both said teammate instead of party member. And I wanted to bring up the notion that traditionally, at least here in the United States and most Western culture, culture in the West, especially the United States, when someone says game, people automatically assume that in a game there's going to be a winner and a loser. That's why people were confused about why the NFL can allow ties. That's why my favorite sport, football or soccer, as it's called in the United States, a lot of people that live in the United States don't understand the whole point of them being able to tie in a game. Because in our American culture, there's always when you hear the term game, there's always a winner and a loser. And you'll notice that, of course, as I always talk about, Dungeons and Dragons is a collaborative storytelling game. A co-op game, as it were. You'll notice that a lot of different board games and such, there's a lot of different cooperative games where the players all work together as a team to try to quote-unquote win the game. And perhaps it might be a situation where the players, perhaps they're like home game, or whoever taught them to play D&D, or of course they consider it a game, so they don't think of the fact that it is everyone working together, that the DM is just another player that just has a little bit more responsibility. They might look at it as a situation where it's the players versus the DM, because that's just how they were taught to play the game, or that's how they look at the game when they started learning to play. Was that, hey, this DM is the person that's the DM is in charge of everything, so we're actually playing against them. And obviously that's not the case, especially when I'm dungeon mastering. I view the characters as the heroes of the story, and we get to tell their story together. Just a bit of advice that I wanted to give out to a lot of different DMs, especially if you're a newer dungeon master. If you're an experienced dungeon master, and again, this is all just my the way that I look at the game. This is, of course, my Twitch channel here. If people have different opinions, that's totally understandable. You play D&D how you want to play. It's a game for everyone and for all play styles. But what I like to do, especially if your players are if you're a newer DM or an established DM, and your players are going to play at other places besides just your home game. If they're going to go to your game stores and play, if they're going to go to conventions and play, if they're going to jump online with new players and play, help them to understand that it is a game, a collaborative game. Some DMs might not look at it as a collaborative story type of game, but what's going to happen is that the way that you DM for your players is going to reflect on those players when they go to play with other DMs. So your style of DMing, the way that you run your games, the way that you interact with your players, does not just affect your table, especially when your players go to play with other DMs and other players. That behavior that you might as we talked about a couple of weeks ago with not really toxicity, but just types of things that can derail a game and such. With me and Dantish in a few weeks, it should be up on YouTube now. But is those types of things an example of how DMs can bring games down? Not just their games, specifically when they're playing with their players, but it can affect others when your players leave and they're used to the way that you play, they're used to the way that you run a game. And if you run that game as an adversarial position, or play it as like it's the DM versus the players, that is going to affect other games, especially when you go to tables where players are not used to playing in that style of game, and then the players that are used to playing that way become adversarial, and that brings down the whole table. And again, like I said, it was a situation. Sorry, my familiar is awake and back there. She can't hear, so she's just meowing. But when players aren't used to that, it does bog down a game. Now, like I said, those players might have just had a very, very long day and might have been very, very tired and weren't understanding the directions that were given out at the beginning of the session. They may not have understood what was going on fully in the situations, which is one of the things that we talked about always being present when you're playing, especially online. There's a lot of situations where you can always tell when you're running online events where a player's gone AFK without saying anything, because it's almost as if they think, well, people can't see me, we're playing online, I can go ahead and step away, I don't really have to pay attention to what's going on in this combat, when in actuality you really do need to stick around in that manner. Players, I always at least advise players when you're playing online to treat it as if you were playing in person. You wouldn't just get up from the table in the middle of a combat, completely walk away without saying, hey guys, let's take a small quick break, I need to use the restroom, or hey, I'm gonna go grab a drink, I'll be right back, something like that. Most people don't just get up from a table, walk away, go into the kitchen and grab a snack or something like that while the game's going on. So try to, as a player and a DM, especially if you're playing games online, to be ready to treat it as if it's an in-person game at a gaming table, so that you're not, for one, holding the table up. You're not taking time away from everyone. You're paying attention to what's going on, and you don't have to constantly ask, well, where'd that guy go? Well, he was literally, that monster was killed literally right before your turn, but you were AFK and didn't see it, so that does take time out of the game. That's not a big deal. It's just one of those small things that just to throw in your toolbox as a player or a DM to make sure that you're ensuring that people can have as much fun as possible, including yourself, of course. So if you're teaching people to play, if you're teaching people to be DMs, make sure to let them know that D&D is not an adversarial game. It is where it comes to the players, the PCs versus the world. That can be definitely adversarial, but they help them to associate that the DM does not represent the enemy. The DM has to control the enemy, unfortunately, but the DM is not their enemy. They don't have to be adversarial. And like I mentioned, the players just might have had a very, very long day and all of that. But again, as I mentioned at the end of the session, everyone had a great time, and we were able to leave the table with everyone hopefully being in good moods, better moods, as it were. Sorry, again, grab a drink. Something else that I wanted to talk about, and I've been seeing this a lot with my client games, my games at conventions, online, all of these different types of things, is the players and the DMs buying into the adventure. What I mean by that is, if you're the dungeon master and you sit down and you talk smack about the adventure, or you talk about how the adventure is wrong, the only thing I will say generally, if I sit down about an adventure, is I'm going to say to the players, I apologize, this adventure did not come with any maps, or no maps were provided for this adventure. So sometimes I will have to find some maps or create some maps using a map making program to represent what was there. Sometimes it's not exactly as it's written in the adventure, but that's the only thing I'll say about adventures. When I sit down to a table, if you as the DM don't like an adventure and you're having to run at a convention or something like that, obviously if you don't like an adventure for your home game, you don't have to run it. You can change it or anything like that. But when you're running at conventions, usually especially for Adventurers League, you sometimes don't really necessarily have a whole bunch of choice in what you can run, because of the fact that they may be running certain adventures for that convention. They may be running certain adventures for that organizer, things like that. So sometimes you don't necessarily have a choice of what you're playing. So definitely don't badmouth the adventures. And then when I'm talking about buying into adventures, I'm talking about immersion. And again, this is just from my perspective. If other players and other DMs think differently, completely, totally fine. I'm not saying in any way whatsoever that what I'm saying is fact. It's just, kind of my opinion idea from it is I love immersion in games. So I love it when the situations become dire and the players become really into the drama or into the scene of the game or into the battle of the game as it's going on. And what kind of breaks his immersion is when the player characters sit down for an adventure, and then you go through for the Adventurers League. We always have something called a call to action. For homebrew or other adventures, it might be a situation where they're meeting the quest giver for the first time. And when players have a tendency to immediately break the immersion by jokingly denying the quest, or questioning why the quest is being given, or questioning why they didn't do something else as well. You have to also look at the idea that as 5th edition's grown since it first came out, you'll notice that it's getting larger. It's looking for a larger audience, younger audience, things like that. And so a lot of the way that adventures are going to be written are going to be much simpler. You're not going to have to, like when I was in middle school and early high school, I'd get adventures and they'd have these really large words. I'd have to grab a dictionary or an encyclopedia to find out what they meant. And then just finding out that like morass meant swamp when I was like 6 years or sixth grade. Which just expanded my vocabulary back then. But they are starting to use simpler language for younger generations and newer players that are coming out that are still fairly young. So the concepts of the adventures are getting more simplified. That is if you're doing published adventures. If you're publishing your own adventures or you're playing homebrew, all of that. But when players go through and they question why they're getting the quest, a lot of times when writers are sitting down to write something, they can't really go through and think of every single thing that veteran players, that medium experienced players, or that newer players are going to think to ask or think about. So as a DM, obviously that's a great place for you to do a little bit of improv and such like that. But for players, make sure to do your best to buy into the adventure. Obviously, if you're at a convention or you're going to your local game store and you had to pay like $5 to sit down, some stores have players pay for a seat or whatever. When you don't buy into the adventure, for one, it does bring down, at least in my opinion, brings down the overall fun of everyone having that, especially when you go too much out of character. And I know I've seen a lot with newer players, mostly because I get the idea that role playing is very, very uncomfortable when you first start doing it. It is kind of like acting, and if you're not used to, acting like in plays or musicals or whatever, if you were in theater or drama or anything like that, if you're not used to that type of stuff, it does become uncomfortable. And a lot of times, when people are in uncomfortable situations, they do have a tendency to try to turn to humor to ease that tension or that situation to make them feel a little bit more comfortable. So as we spoke about a few weeks ago with safety tools and stuff, that's something you can also maybe even mention to your dungeon master ahead of time. If there are situations that, like we talked about, lines and veils, things like that, if there are things that make you uncomfortable, make sure to let your dungeon master know that. That way, I mean, again, if your home party is nothing but sitting around cracking jokes, having fun, breaking immersion all the time, going out of character, continue to do that. That's not a problem at all. Play D&D how you want to play D&D. I'm just giving advice and ideas for those that want to keep the immersion going to think about. One of those is buying into the adventure. Now, as a DM too, this also goes back to what I'd mentioned earlier about helping your players. If there are situations where you have a player that's constantly cracking jokes, constantly talking over and breaking the immersion, maybe talk to them after the session or before the next session and say, is there why is there a reason behind this? Is this just your personality? Keep in mind you are role playing a character, and this you'll notice a lot too is that even if players have played for 5, 6, 7 years or whatever, they tend to be one-dimensional in how they role play their characters. They may be playing a different class, they may be playing a different race, but because of their personality, they play the exact same type of character over and over, which is fine. That's totally fine. But if you can help and work with your players, say, how do you feel about playing something a little bit out of your comfort zone? Because, like I said, the DM's always learning. You get better as your players get better as well. When your players become more experienced, when your players can bring aspects of the game that you really think about into it by role-playing things differently, by looking at the game differently, you can grow as a DM as well. So just a little bit of different ideas of ways to help keep immersion. If you're into immersion, like I said before, if you're not, immersion's not that big to you, then obviously play D&D how you play D&D, as I always say. But those are just some different ideas to think about as a player, as buying into the adventure, as a DM buying into the adventure as well, selling the quest. If your players do have legitimate questions about why is this going on, do your best to try to improv to help them buy into the adventure as well. And then, of course, if you're the player, try just to not be ridiculous about why you're doing this quest. And like, okay, well, if you don't want to buy into it, the adventure's over and we have nothing to do. So, think about that type of stuff when you're getting ready to play a game. We're not going to be on too long today, probably just about a half hour. We do have some stuff to take care of here as well. We are going to be back to our full streaming starting tomorrow. We do have tomorrow night, we do have our Tavern Talks back with the wonderful Belinda Baldwin is going to be with us, talk about her projects. She plays a lot of Foundry, actually, for virtual tabletop. So we might talk to her a little bit about that, the differences between it and Roll20. Obviously talk about her experiences with D&D as well. And then back to Thursday and Friday at 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern to up to 4 p.m. Eastern. We will have our Dungeon Delving shows back, doing again Lord of the Rings online on the Landerval server. If anyone wants to jump onto that server and play, right now I'm concentrating on getting the character that we're playing up to 140th level, which is the max. But we might actually take some side excursions into showing some other aspects of the game, like the different crafting and such like that's available, and kind of showcase some different stuff. I do try to keep it mostly action and combat, just because that's it's kind of boring just to sit there and watch someone sew, as my character is a tailor, so that can be a little bit boring. So we want to try to keep that as active as possible. We were also discussing the idea of doing a horror themed video game stream, and that is probably when we are going to bring back the moniker of the name of the episode, Around the Campfire. So if you're sitting around the campfire and you're telling scary stories and horror stories and stuff like that. So we will probably bring that back in some form or fashion. I'm not really sure exactly when we're going to have that stream start, but that'll probably be within the next month or so. We are still working on finishing up getting everything connected with PayPal and all of that for the merch store, which we should have up here very soon. But then on Sunday, we will be starting back up with our live play Sunday evenings. We took the Sunday off for Easter. We took this past Sunday off for the virtual D&D weekend. Of course, we'll be having a couple new community members come into play. Prisoner 13 from the Keys from the Golden Vault. That is the 4th level adventure. It was the one that was previewed on D&D Beyond before Keys from the Golden Vault came out. So we will be playing part 1 of that this Sunday, April 23rd. We play from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, next week on the 30th, we will have part 2 to conclude that. And then, of course, we will be back with Dungeons and Deliberations for a full hour next week. Again, virtual D&D weekend, all weekend. My voice is very, very tired. Yeah, so if you haven't joined our Discord community, if you're watching this on video on demand or on YouTube, you can go to our Twitch channel. It's Twitch TV / The Master of Dungeons. You can go to the About section below here. You can click on our Discord panel. That will give you an invite to our community Discord server. Lots of great experience and learning DMs and players on there that can help out. As I mentioned, our community does focus more on Adventurers League. We do have some different videos up on YouTube and such that discuss what Adventurers League is. You can find all of the documentation for Adventurers League as well. We also do a lot of homebrew stuff also. I am planning on having some of these Dungeons and Deliberations perhaps in the future, discuss world building, things like that. I've had my own campaign world that's been running for over 30 years, and it does evolve constantly, especially with every edition of D&D. But we will just, on our Discord server, there's areas to talk about all those different types of things as well. Plus, down below in the About Us section, you can find our link tree, which has links to all of our different social media platforms. And you can like us there, follow us there, subscribe to us on YouTube, things like that. Check out the videos and help continue to support us. We do thank everyone for the support. For those that we do have on for patrons on Patreon, we did just discuss this past week going ahead and trying to get some different tiers available up there for the patrons to work with. We are still talking about the different in-channel currency and how we're going to do that. We're going to try to get that enabled in the next few weeks. That way the viewers on Sunday nights can have some things to help out the players. And maybe hinder the monsters or something like that to throw up some disadvantage on an attack roll for a monster, or give a player advantage on a attack roll or a saving throw, things of that nature. So once we get all that stuff up, we of course will announce all those things on the Discord server and all of that. So again, thank you so much for all the support and all the views and everyone coming in to check out the channel. It's very much appreciated, and we will see you tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Eastern to speak with Belinda. And everyone, have a great night. Take care, be safe, and happy adventuring.